Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Margik's Fundraising for the Future of Lighting Tech Ask Me Anything webinar. Today we have Margik Kucherga, Eva Bay um, of Margik. They will be giving us a presentation, after which we will be having an open Q&A session. If you'd like to ask any questions, please be sure to place your questions under the Q&A chat on the right-hand side of the webinar, or if you'd like to ask your questions live, please be sure to raise your hand. Take it away.
All right, well, hello everybody. Yeah, just make sure you hold on to your questions. If you have a question that you would like to ask live later on and go on the microphone, you will have such opportunity as well. Just let us know in the Q&A section so we can bring you backstage and you can ask your question live. But other than that, you're welcome to just type away throughout the presentation, and then we will make sure to address everything. And I'll try to keep it short so I'm not talking at you at the screen, and we can keep it more lively with the interactive portion of the presentation. All right, let me make sure that we can all see what I'm talking about. All right. Today I would like to start a little bit with why Margik was created and what global issues we are addressing. We are talking about primarily lighting applications of the technologies that we have developed, and that's primarily what we're trying to commercialize. Now, the problem with lighting, there are several global issues with lighting as of today. Part of it being a problem of resiliency of lighting. So when there are power outages or natural disasters, there are very few ways of keeping the lights and essential operations going. The cost and efficiency is also quite a bit of a challenge nowadays with high power consumption needs of our society, but low supply as availability. So that requires new innovations as well. There are problems with supply chain, and that has been going on ever since 2020. We see all the backups, all the limited supply, as well as improper ethics of the supply chain. And the last but not least is probably one of the primary issues in the lighting over the next couple of centuries is the shortages within the mining. So we actually are running out of several essential elements in the lighting industry. So basically, we could end up by 2040 not being able to produce a laptop or a cell phone. That is why it is very important to start addressing these issues as soon as possible and from as many angles as possible. The current idea is that we can solve all these issues by introducing organic light emitting diodes in place of traditional light emitting diodes that are used now. They are capable of addressing a lot of these issues, but they still use often scarce elements. They're very expensive to manufacture and very complex to manufacture. So it requires a lot of brain power, a lot of labor, a lot of machinery, and it is not a very efficient process as of today. Now, what do manufacturers want? They want a solution that could shift their processes to earth abundant and locally available supplies, making sure that we can make cost effective devices for consumers, and that could be accessible on global scale. And ideally, these devices have to be either easily recyclable or in some cases even biodegradable. So when they end up on landfills, they don't just accumulate, they can be just utilized as the resource for the soil. Now, it is a huge opportunity between the display electronics, consumer electronics, materials market, packaging, and variety of organic devices. We sit kind of at an intersection between organic lighting companies, organic materials companies, and then also packaging type of solutions. So we kind of combine all three of these industries into one with our ultimate hope to reach $10 billion of revenue as a target market. Now, how do we get there? So our novel solution is that we have an invention of organic lighting main diode platform. It's a platform of materials that can be designed in a particular way per customer need to fit the efficiency of the devices as well as the ease of manufacturing accommodations. Now, those patents also applicable in other areas such as emergency signage, solar panels, packaging labeling, smart windows, robotics, and even drug discovery. But our focus as a startup right now for B2B commercialization is within lighting opportunities, and we would like to license our technology for the rest of the areas and give it in the hands of those that know what they're doing. Now, our Margik solution, we already know that it enables OLEDs to gain manufacturing efficiency. So it's 80% faster manufacturing approach. It also enables to reduce CO2 emissions by 66% associated with manufacturing and usage of lighting devices that utilize OLEDs. And we're not only able to simplify these devices, but also give it a little extra kick on the efficiency. So these devices are also 11% brighter while consuming less amount of energy. So overall, if we implement this technology globally and replace every LED device that we can by 2050, we would save 800 megatons of CO2 emissions by 2050 with full adoption. Now, we are always actively interacting with industry manufacturers of organic electronics and others, and we already have been able to secure letters of support from 7 companies with 2 intents of purchase from the global types of companies, from lighting industry, also for drug sensing and some of the automotive applications as well. Now, our go-to-market strategy is actually taking a little bit of a step back away from the intense competition of consumer electronics market. Although it's the largest market and the most lucrative, it is not a simple one to break into. We would first embed our products within the packaging distributing area, and that's typically we're working closely together with brands that utilize these products as well as the manufacturing facilities that make up the boxes, the bottles, and then deliver them to the brands. So that's how we're able to utilize some of our first pilot projects through that area. We are planning to produce lighting for electrical bikes, and that's one of our other pilots lined up for 2023. And autonomous signage, not just the exit signage, but also markers that are in remote areas and very dark areas, especially up north where it is mostly dark during the winter or things get snowed on and you don't see anything, so illumination becomes a big part of the needed identification of objects. Our projections that in 2023 we can reach 180,000 in revenue by selling 5,000 units, with the 2024 projection being for 400,000 units. Now, as far as how are we planning to grow and what are we going to do in the future beyond just the entry point? Yes, our entry point being luxury branding, which can be quite stiff as far as the future growth, because there's only so many brands we can go to within luxury branding without having to cut down the price severely. On the initial stages, obviously over time with scale up, we would be able to bring down the costs of production. Our next growth step is within the emergency lighting between the civilian applications as well as government contracts with the United States Air Force. And then our next growth step would be within indoor lighting as well as smart window applications, which we already begun conversations in those areas as well, with ultimately being able to establish ourselves in a track record to enter the most competitive consumer electronics market, which can easily bring 1 billion per customer. We do have quite a growing team, as well as we do have over 90 years of experience within consumer markets and electronic devices that we're able to pull together their experiences and their knowledge to form a very unique set of knowledge available specifically to your company, from the sales operations all the way to unique and novel engineering to production of organic electronic materials. That is the essential portion of our company as well. To business development, we do pay close attention to how we're going to actually roll out on the market and how to make it scalable. We are still continuing to build our advisory team and board of directors. So if you are interested to join us in that avenue as well, we would greatly appreciate your attention and would be happy to talk to you about opportunities about joining our team and getting involved and having an impact. As of today, we have been able to raise some of the funding through government contracts, accelerators, as well as some of the private capital from the entities that are listed here above. And we do have partnerships with Argo National Laboratory and University of North Carolina at Charlotte, which have been a great support to take us really from the idea stage to see actual products that you can hold in your hands and being able to pilot them with customers this year as well. And we also have been the only winner of 10 million unicorns on the show Unicorn Hunters. So that can serve us as a asset for the future. Our capital ask as of today is 400,000 to be able to scale up a production and accommodate our pilots. So we do have 3 packaging pilots lined up along with the biking opportunity as well as the United States Air Force. So quite 3 different projects along 3 different avenues. And upon success, would be able to then go into our production facility goals here listed on the right. But right now we're planning to close at the end of February our 400,000 round with 50,000 already committed for specifically the light up labeling applications as well as these small remote devices for identification in the dark. And with that's where we are asking for your help with either if you know somebody who's looking for investment or you are an investor, please reach out to us at info@margik.tech. We'd be happy to tell you a little bit more about the terms and answer any further questions that you have specifically related to further details that cannot be disclosed in a public call like this. And with that, I would like to stop sharing my presentation and go into questions.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can write them on the right-hand side, or if you'd like to ask them live, you are able to raise your hand and we can put you on stage to ask any questions. I guess you covered this in the presentation slightly, but I'll ask it again. What is the strategic advantage of focusing on lighting applications as opposed to the LED display market?
Yes, so the display market has primarily 2 giants, being Samsung Electronics and LG Display, where it is very difficult to compete, even for companies like Apple. Even Apple still can't compete with Samsung. So obviously for a startup, it's a much more difficult pathway to be able to become a supplier for a company giant, not just from the scalability factor, there's just engineering that can be done, but it's really the technology readiness perspective and being able to accommodate millions of devices at a time reliably and accommodate all the needs of such a giant. The other problem with going after giants like that is the fact that it has to be a long process of embedding into your cell phone that you have in a pocket. It's not something that happens over even a year. It's a very long process. So once we start to talk to LG Display and Samsung Electronics, what we'll learn is that that cycle usually goes like this. So your R&D scale of testing of the product success is the first 1 to 2 years. After the R&D scale, it goes into sort of an intermediate testing where the small amount of units is being produced and tested over a period of time of 2 to 5 years. And after that, you would only be able to access their main production line, which it stays in the production for about 1 to 2 years before it's capable to be released to the consumer. So even if everything goes perfectly smooth, that's an 8 to 10 year pathway with not much opportunity for really bringing the revenue and profitability to the startup company on these purchase orders. And they're quite rigid because a lot of these deals are very exclusive deals, and if are successful, obviously can be very lucrative. But for a lot of the startups, it's usually not the case. A lot of times, about halfway through, there is some issue, or the company decides to back out and leave in a different direction, and startups end up with nothing, having to pivot into a completely different direction. And one of the reasons for that is not having track record on the market. It is very easy to silence companies that do not have any track record in the market. So we decided to back out of these conversations and start with building a track record of embedding the product in the market first, building up our own customer base that can recommend the success on the market with our novel solutions, and then take it to a giant, more of an exit strategy at that point rather than initial customer. So it's slightly different thought process. And that decision came from a combination of observing other materials based companies and how they were successful or unsuccessful and why they were successful and unsuccessful. And the strategy of vertical integration on the market seemed to be historically the most successful.
Thank you for answering that. So, what is the difference between Margik's material as opposed to existing materials in the marketplace for manufacturing OLED solutions?
Yeah, without having to disclose a lot of scientific protocols, since it is proprietary technology, the key aspects that differentiate our materials are, first of all, being mimicking materials. So they do still perform what has to be done, right? So we're not reinventing really what lighting technology and what photonics is. What we are doing is we're taking what historically has been working really well for these devices and replacing it with earth abundant organic materials. So these materials are built in a way that can be structurally maneuvered to gain certain functionalities. So that way we can be moldable within different types of structures from one manufacturer to the other. We're not stuck to one type of manufacturer. So right now there are two primary ways to manufacture lighting devices, organic lighting devices. One being thermal evaporation, so you're subliming materials and you're making thin films to make your device, or you use solution-based processing, which gets a little bit more complicated since there are a variety of ways to make that happen. But that's the two primary ways we have to accommodate, and those are quite different from materials composition standpoint. But if we want to stay in the market and be competitive, we have to accommodate both ways of processing these materials, and we have received feedback that it is indeed possible to utilize these materials that we're producing in both manners. So that is what we're pushing for, is definitely sustainability and recyclability factor of the devices of the future, as well as we are enabling the power consumption reduction of ultimately produced devices, as well as increasing their usability and efficiency and unlocking some of the performance matrix that currently inaccessible, or we have such a low access to them, such as your bendable devices, your rollable devices, that in the future you'd be able to just roll out your TV from a tube. Right now it's still quite out there. We don't have the technologies that are capable of producing such things very easily, as well as the recyclability issue is becoming more and more prominent as we actually have more resources laying around in landfills in forms of old electronic devices than we have resources left over in the mines. So it definitely can't go on like that. We have to solve the root of the problem and stop producing devices containing such materials.
Follow-up question to to the materials question. Where are they located? Where can they be sourced from? And are they mined in any particular area or use any particular mining methodology
The current,
for
what's
Margik?
currently
for
For
producing
Margik.
Margik materials?
Yeah, there are a few ways that we're looking at sourcing materials right now. We are currently giving priority to United States and European sources, as they are typically more ethically sourced, do not involve miners in mining, as well as there are several opportunities of recycled materials or extracting them from biomasses, so things like your leftover foods and things like that. So that's what our ultimate goal is, to channel all of our sourcing to become either from recycled materials or from CO2 capturing byproducts that can be retrieved in forms of solvents and things like that. So shifting towards fully greenable processes in the next 5 years.
We have a gentleman by the name of Anthony Jones. He's saying he loved your presentation on unicorn hunters. He's asking, what would be your exit strategy?
Well, thank you for a compliment. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Quite a few things happened since then. But our exit strategy ideally would be acquisition. So within the 10-year mark, we're hoping to get acquired by a larger organic electronics entity, whether it's LG Display or who else might come along. We are also looking at acquisitions through material companies like Merck. So there are quite a few ways of getting involved from that angle as well, where we would be becoming a product expansion sort of solution to the company portfolio of acquisition, and then hopefully we can design it in a way to where we can still exist as an entity, just being kind of a sidearm to the acquirer. That would be the ideal case scenario. But historically, there's only really one company that had made successful public IPO exit. So we're really not holding our breath for success of such strategy, and really channeling towards acquisition and making those connections now. So that 7 to 10 years down the road, we actually have options for successful exit.
We have some people in the webinar. If anybody would like to ask any additional questions around patents or any anything in that area, feel free to post your question. Um, how are Margik materials used in printing applications?
Can you specify printing applications?
Yeah, so I understand that Margik's materials are embedded in in polymers or other materials.
Ah, okay. Okay. I see where you're coming from. So, yes, there are actually a couple of ways you can utilize. So, for because of the problems of shipping and regulatory issues, we're not shipping liquids. We're only shipping powders. So our materials come in form of powders, which then we're providing a recipe if it is a printable application that needs to be had. We're providing a recipe of how to make up the solution for your specific printer, whether it's a jet printer, slot die printer, or any other options that are out there. That's one way where you just make directly film off a material embedded in some kind of solvent that then you just get rid of the solvent and you're left over with the thin film material. Or the other option that's especially we see a lot more from the smart window applications and some of the exit signage applications. We do see indeed having the need of embedding within the polymer, so that way you can avoid multiple steps for production. So you just right away embed your emissive material into the polymer plate that will then serve as the sign itself. And the key issue that customers come to us is the problem of materials not surviving the process of polymerization. So the demands for the functionality of materials are really, really high. It's not only has to efficiently serve as a lighting component, but it also has to be incredibly ruggedized and make sure it can survive the very harsh caramelization conditions, from high temperatures to very aggressive reagents to UV components during the hardening of polymers. So that's what we're targeting with these applications. So yes, it is kind of a two-part solution on both ends.
We have a Thank you very much for that response. We have a question from Mehmet. He is asking, or they are asking, the size of the patent family and the pipeline in the near mid future.
Yes, so currently we're working with three patents. I'm an inventor on one of them, and some of the other ones come from folks that are part of the team. And we are building a portfolio that is directly from the company. So our previous patents come from our alma mater institution, where we're currently discussing exclusive licensing opportunity with currently active option to license agreements for full exclusive rights. And we're working towards our agreement on once the patents are issued to have exclusive licensing agreement with option to purchase, which thankfully we are capable to include that option, as I know some of the institutions do not allow that option. So that we're really excited about that. We are also going to lean quite heavy on trade secrets, and the reason for that being is the very tight and aggressive competition from the giants as well as companies that are also startups similar to us. And as patents are public information, right, that would mean that we would be teaching our competition on what to do. So there are several solutions that we're right now having as trade secret for that reason, until we have a chance to establish the products on the market first, without having any leaks out there. And then for our material portfolio, we will continue to patent our material portfolio since there are much larger families, and we want to make sure we don't lose on the licensing opportunities that we could benefit from.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Hamed. They're asking, how is your technology going to impact indoor and outdoor OLED lighting products?
Um, As far as outdoor lighting, we're definitely not going to be your next highway light. It's not what this technology is really designed for, as well as it definitely different in a sense of light emitting diode technology is by definition more acting like a strobe light. So it is going to be very directional, which is very nice for the road types of application. It's going to push the light downwards onto the road. Versus organic light emitting diode type of light is by nature diffuse light. It's much softer. So for things like rear lighting of automobiles, of motorcycles, that's great. You want that diffuse light instead of a strobe light into your eyeballs while you're behind the wheels, right? So for the outdoor lighting applications, we are talking about vehicles, or we're talking about things like pedestrian crosswalks, where it just illuminates from the bottom, so that way both the pedestrian and the car can see where the crosswalk is, if it's foggy, snowy, etc. When we're talking about outdoor, we're also talking about things like your runners, your bicycle folks, which need to have some kind of a marker when they run and they're out and about in the dark. And another application we have seen is identification of stationary objects to make sure when you are driving your car in the darker areas, especially in the climates where it is mostly night for a large portion of the year. And then for indoor applications, we are looking at substituting your traditional light bulb and your traditional light fixtures. That is quite a bit of a larger task because it will require some of the remodeling, and we're trying to figure out what is the least intrusive way, right, to where we can get these lighting devices into every household without having to rebuild, right? We can't rebuild every house. Even in the United States, that would be impossible to do that. So, how we can embed that. And the reason for that is really the true benefit of organic lighting in diodes. It is the only light that is actually natural to the human being. It is as close to a natural light as we can get, and because of that natural diffuse light. And the other great benefit of LED lighting is the fact that it doesn't have the harmful blue light, which A, damages your eyesight, and B, it disrupts your sleep cycle. So it actually messes with your hormones. So you are more tired during the day and you can't fall asleep as easily and have a good sleep cycle during the night. So substituting to organic lighting would actually help with your natural sleep cycle and having higher energy and less fatigue during your workday. So definitely we're targeting your business buildings, medical facilities where the light is pretty much all the time on. And then ultimately, ideally, we could also bring this lighting into the households as well. But thank you, great question.
Thank you for that response. There is a question from Shafil, and they state it's a very good presentation. And as a graduate student, they would like to ask about opportunities for these challenging jobs from a chemical or chemistry engineering background. I think this would be an excellent question for Adam, who is a founding engineer for Margik. Adam, would you like to take that question?
Sure. So I should probably give a very brief background about me. I graduated from the same research group that Margaret did. Um, we primarily focused on organic light emitting devices, right? Um, Here specifically, most of the jobs in this area are primarily applications based. So things like, you know, certain specific additives going into paints, different sorts of commercial products for consumers, such as like shampoos, toothpastes, things like that. Um, I personally found that a little bit tedious. And as I'd already been working in this field and I was very familiar with it, I thought that this would be a good step for me personally. These types of jobs are heavily dependent on your background, I would say. I would recommend startups if you are extraordinarily familiar with the team, their work, what they do from a day to day basis. But it is very risky to join if you are unfamiliar, as there's already a lot of, culture inside of that small group, right? I know Margaret, I know Eva, I know my coworker Kevin, who could not attend. I've known them for over 2, 3 years, depending on the person. Um, it can be a bit intimidating to join up, right? But I would say that this is a very wonderful opportunity. But again, it is very dependent on how well you are already established with the people that are involved in that. Not sure if that was the best answer to the question. Um, spe- Specifically, since you're talking about the chemistry and the engineering background, chemical engineering background, since I was already familiar, it was quite an easy transition. But if you were from outside, it might be a little more challenging. Not impossible, mind you, but that's about all I have for that situation.
I have a follow up question, Adam. So you guys work in two different locations, is that correct? In UNC
Three,
and the Argonne National Laboratory.
We're
uh,
about to go to three
three,
locations.
yeah.
So
Um,
what kind of work do you guys do in those the separate locations?
so Argon primarily handles most of the OLED testing and manufacturing, from what I can sort of tell. I've actually never been to Argon personally, but I know that they handle most of the actual manufacturing and testing for us. UNC, we do primarily the material research applications, and I'm not sure. Am I allowed to talk about the third?
Very, very limited. Yeah, we still have not made any public announcements for California
Uh,
arm of what is coming out of things, but we do have a good amount of engineering with friends in California and folks that are part of our team there as well. But yeah, we're already spanning three different locations on the map, three different time zones. That's always a fun game.
I have a question for Eva. Eva and Adam, I believe you guys attended a conference a few weeks ago. Eva, from a non-technical perspective, seeing as you're the chief of staff for Margik, what have been some of the things you've heard, or some of the things you've noticed from interactions representing Margik at that conference?
Right. Yeah, we went to CES in Vegas. Some of you might have been there as well. It's a huge event in Vegas. So some things I noticed are people are very excited to see the light up stickers. So I have one with me. I always enjoy taking these to events because people are always really excited to see them. And then we went with our partners at ZenPack. They do packaging, so people were really excited to see how our product could be incorporated into packaging materials, whether it's a box, sticker, or label.
Anything else that you've seen in that conference that might relate to Margik? Were there any interested parties that want to collaborate or anything like that?
Yeah, we've had a couple leads. We've been talking to them throughout the past couple of weeks. But yeah, have had a couple leads that are interested in using Margik, and then also a couple different sorts of something we haven't done yet. Somebody from HP was interested in talking to us about backlighting for keyboards. So that was an idea we hadn't even talked about before. So new ideas brought to the table as well.
Okay. We have a question from Adesola. Um, they're asking about the sensing capability of OLEDs. How can these be achieved? She also enjoyed the presentation. So I suppose, how can you enable sensing capabilities with OLED products?
Adam, you want to take that one?
so design. You're putting me on the spot here.
You go with
So
your
very,
answer, and
very
then I'll
simply,
pick up the other side of that question.
very simply, at the moment, it's challenging. There's quite a few different ways you can go about it. You can have materials that turn their fluorescence on and off depending on different sorts of vapors in the air. That is the first type of solution to that. So you could have a fluorescent material that does it. The second is actually incorporating a full-scale device that requires circuitry, very specific types of sensors, and a lot of wiring. But yeah, that's primarily what we're sort of thinking in terms of uh, sensors when it comes to OLEDs. It'll be a simple circuit that can trigger on off with detection of certain types of gases.
From a patent portfolio perspective, we do have such options for the materials themselves being the sensors. We do see quite a bit of the need of merging the two, having the material sensor and the OLED being in one, since typically when you need such a device, you really don't have time to go and put it into some kind of other machine and start detecting it and analyzing it. You really want a very quick warning saying that, hey, there was something around you, whether it's an explosive, whether it's a war gas that you really can't see with your eyes. You need a very quick and rapid indication of what that concern might be, that you can seek safety. You typically don't always need right away to know what that is, but for the safety purposes, for you to go ahead and go put your breathing masks or other devices. That way you can go ahead and make sure that the people around you are in safety mode at that point, and then you can spend more time realizing what that is and how to handle it. So that's why we have seen quite a bit of design need of merging the two, the sensing of the materials, and have a functional sensor coupled to a lighting device that can be just a quick indication of that there is a problem around you. Similar, it could be either photochemical, it could be some piezoelectric processes we've looked at. We have looked at fluorescent, phosphorescence. So it will be definitely a combination of both photonics product as well as some kind of sensing material.
All right. Well, all good answers. I have one more question for you guys. How is your existing advisory board, your advisory team, supporting your go-to-market strategy?
Yes, so they challenge all the time, every decision we make, which is great. That's what we need. We don't want to be stuck in one mindset because even though we have launched in COVID, really, that's when we started our business. But in the last 3 years of our existence, the market has been changing dramatically between COVID shutdown, supply chain disruptions, to the war between Russia and Ukraine, to right now the downturn of the economics and mass layoffs. It is very difficult to stay on top of market needs. So that's why we need a lot of eyeballs at all times to try to understand where the issues might come out or the new needs might come out. As right now in the packaging industry, there are quite a few holes between the supply chain and the options available for branding and marketing purposes. And innovation is really becoming now a must-have need for these brands and the packaging companies. And right now for us, it's a great timing opportunity to offer innovative solutions that can be embedded. But our advisory team challenges always these decisions, whether or not it's a good opportunity based on ease of embedding of the product, how much R&D will require to go into this direction, as well as what is the ultimate outcome. Is the ultimate outcome a bigger market share? Is the ultimate outcome really getting more popular, more known as a brand? What is that target goal, and does it still keep us on track for ultimately where the company is going, or is it steering us away? And these decisions constantly have to be revised and seen. But they also bring experiences and knowledge that our core team doesn't have, right? Majority of our core team is fairly young, and we thrive and drive on ambitions and just coffee and sleepless nights, and we can do that portion really well. But we don't have that level of maturity, that level of people have failed companies, sold companies. You really can't have that experience without having to be going through. So I really appreciate our advisors bringing that side to the table, having to bring companies from really a laboratory bench in academia all the way out to a public IPO company and have that experience, or being acquired by a larger company. And that is something that you just have to live through and then be able to make choices and decisions based on such experiences and such knowledge and such network. Network is a big deal. We're all humans, and yes, business is business, but it's not an entity that signs you a check at the end of the day, right? It's somebody, it's some kind of person behind the counter that's going to sign that check for your product. And we pay huge attention to people relations. Our advisors pay huge attention to people relations, and we really appreciate that aspect that they bring.
So we have less than a minute left on the clock. How should people get in touch with you if they have any further questions? I heard an email address for investor relations, and you have your own personal email.
So yeah, there are two ways. So info@margik.tech. So it is info@margik.tech, tech being TECH, and you can find it on our website pretty easily. That's not a problem. That will get directed to me and will be viewed by me directly. As if you have investor questions related about investor relations, that is investor relations at margik.tech. And you will be directed with appropriate answer or a pitch deck or whatever that extra information that you might need on how to invest and what are the terms. So that's the two primary ways. And if you forget it, you can always go to our website, margik.tech, and you can find all the information there. You'll be directed to all of our social media and all the rest of the platforms and ways to contact